It's another day to prefer solutions to some of the problems that are facing our beloved country, Nigeria. Good morning to you. The program is Atlantic Blowout, right here on Atlantic Television Network. And Atlantic Blowout is a syndicated live program of the network that features chit-chats and conversations on special interest topics. We talk about news events and we talk about stories through correspondence report, expert opinion and stakeholders analysis. Good morning again. Let's take a look at some of the stories that are making the rounds in Nigeria today. We'll first take this story coming all the way from Borno State. Federal government commends communities' resilience amid flooding. And then from Labour, DSS searching for evidence to cower a Jaro statement. And then on fuel scarcity, federal government to supply 25 million litres this September. And then on transportation, federal government forms committee on truck owners taxation. On insecurity, EFCC to disrupt financing network of bandits. And on corruption, we are not intimidated by federal government's action. A statement by Serap. We're going to short break after that to tell you who our guests are. I'll tell you my name and then we'll delve straight into details of the stories. Please stay with us. you so much for standing by. It's time to introduce my amazing guest in the studio. With me, I have on my right, Chuba Opuzo. He is a public affairs analyst, a man for the people, with the people, and by the people.
Thank you once again for having me. Truly my pleasure to be here.
Good morning, Chuba. Thank you so much for making it.
Thank you.
And we also have with us Ambassador Ekie C. Ekie. He is a public affairs analyst, amongst many other things. Good morning, Ambassador. You know it's always a pleasure having you, right?
Same here. Nigeria must get better.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming. All right, let's go to our first story now from Borno State. You probably are aware of what's going on in Borno State currently. That's the flooding now. Nigerian government has praised the resilience of Borno State communities in the face of the recent devastating flood that ravaged the state. Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, conveyed the government's sympathies to the victims and commended their strength in a statement. On behalf of the federal government, in his words, and I quote, "I extend my deepest sympathies to the government and the people of Borno State over the flooding that has ravaged Maiduguri and its environs following the Alau Dam overflow." Now, the minister said this: "We share the grief and suffering of all those affected." The minister emphasized the government's support for the victims. "Our thoughts and prayers are with the victims. We stand with the displaced families and empathize with their pain and the stress during this trying time." As the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has also directed relevant ministries and agencies to collaborate with the Borno State government to provide urgent relief and assistance for the victim. This must be a very hard one. I saw pictures yesterday and I was just screaming along with other people who were there. Like almost the whole state is submerged in flood. And I'm just wondering, and then we heard reports about animals, being carried by the water from the forest in that particular state. And this is a very, very sad one. Ambassador, let's get your thoughts first on this one.
Well, again, condoling and sympathizing with the great people of Borno State over the attack by natural, occurrence, because flood is not something that anybody can control most times, especially in this level of its kind. Though people will say, "Oh, the dam would have been, increased, efforts should have been made." Yes, it's wonderful, but I also know that in developed countries, they equally face floods and also some natural disasters. So natural disasters most times are beyond scientific or technological or human control. So it takes the divine to intervene. But having said that, I would equally like to commend the federal government, directive and their provision. Earlier before now, they have released about 3 billion naira to each of the states that are affected by floods. And the governors have equally received those resources. And I know we discussed about it here, that we trust that the government is not time to go and form a commission or thereabout, a board where some people will begin to buy cars for themselves through those resources, but to ensure that the intent of that resources gets to the people. Again, the issue of the flood is increasing, and because it's increasing, I equally believe that the federal government needs to think back and see how they can increase their support for the people of Borno State and other states that are being ravaged by the flood. Again, I also want to thank the people of Borno State, the citizens and the government of Borno State that have not left them, handicapped. The NEMA, I am aware they've also gone for intervention. But at this point, self-encouragement is key. And that's why I believe the Minister for Information and National Orientation has commended the people of Borno State for their resilience to ensure that they don't give up even in the face of this flooding. But what can we do? It's time to show more love, show more care. And it's also a time that we need to beef up our security, surveillances, and intelligence, because Borno State is one of the states prone with banditry and terrorism. So I feel that the flood is also a way of God trying to assist Nigeria with the issue of our insecurity, where the terrorists can be dislodged from their hideout. And I think the security operatives can leverage on this natural, security response that the divine Lord has provided. All
right, Ambassador, thank you so much for your thoughts on that one. Chuba, I'd like you to come in.
You see, if the rains or the heavens are opened and the waters began to pour in, one would consciously and clearly accrue that to natural disasters. We have departments and what's the constitutions of government, whom by virtue of the humongous budgetary allocations we supposedly hear and see that they have received over this period of time, had made their own forecast concerning the dam. It is a dam overflow. It is not like rains fell, unexpectedly, and with this what we are experiencing. This is a clear case of government incompetence at its highest levels, and we cannot continue to sugarcoat or pet these issues. Now, one would say tomorrow, if the worst happens between the East-West Road or the element petrochemical, and when we start talking about the hearts of God, yes, the heart of God is everywhere, even in the most organized structures or systems. But when men choose not to do what they ought to do and begin to delude themselves with issues that are mundane, and issues like this come up, listen, we will just only wish for the best. But the truth is, we must call government to accountability.
You think it could have been avoided?
Obviously, it could have been avoided. Many times we have had, this is almost like a perennial thing. Year in, year out, almost every 2 years, better case scenario, 10 years, we see these things happen. And the people that are managing these organizations, they already have their own forecast and permutations. What can be done to cause a lasting process that these canals will not only just be opened properly, but be consciously the high waterways possibly clearly dredged, and a process of making sure that there's a pathway for these waters is established. Think of the cost of the cost that the Nigerian government is going to face, or the Borno State government is going to face, trying to fix back these things that are not entirely a natural disaster as it were, but to a large extent it's as a result of man's ineptitude to his duties. So whether we like it or yes, it's a pity. Our hearts go for the people of Borno. And the ambassador clearly stated something that I think I reminisced on before even coming here. My prayer is, let this flood, let the government, they channel this flood to Sambisa Forest. Maybe both the terrorists and the the kidnapper, the people that have been kidnapped, can now have to be looking for the heart of God to deliver all of them out of the forest. And at the end of the day, possibly the water on its own by natural means will drive out the people that have been kidnapped for these years. Else, it is a pitiable situation when you look at it and know that these are things that possibly could have been avoided.
If we did not have control of the water before now, what is the guarantee that all of a sudden we'll be able to channel it to the Sambisa Forest?
Listen, the truth cannot be overemphasized. Like you rightly said, that's a very wonderful question. Because now, whether we like it or yes, with the water coming down south, we know that in no time, if the dam, both in Niger and this immediately opens together at the same time, we have seen this happen again and again. What are the proactive measures of our government? Our government has always been reactionary. When something happens, they jump on public space, begin to make statements, because they live in comfortable high heavens in the Abuja. But if they were the ones possibly positioned in that place, I think something else would have happened. For me, I think that it is high time government sits down with the humongous amount of money we are spending in things that are completely, let us not go there. If we put channels of strength into sustainable infrastructures, for things that we have already anticipated. Listen, when this flood comes, more than a quarter of Delta State, almost the entire Orashi region, almost the entire mass of the Bayelsa state government, a lot of states along the coastal lines will be submerged in water. We know these things are virtually likely to happen. It's not the first time. We already know that this is not a natural disaster. This is something that we have orchestrated one way by international laws. We cannot build a dam of this nature because this is an agreement entered for one reason or the other. But what can we do to prevent its effect or cushion its effect to the Nigerian people going forward? Our government sits down, folds our arms. When it happens like this, we begin to dole out monies, and we know how our people are. The next is to carry spiritists to go there and start looking for sunlight to come and evaporate the water. And so that money.
Wow, so that's usually done.
Okay, now you're hearing it.
Wait, Ambassador Chuba has said that this is clearly not just a natural disaster. You know, we had forecasts. It's something that was seen before time. In fact, this was even announced before time, where certain states were told to, you know, move to higher ground or vacate their houses or something like that. So this is, according to Chuba, not something we would, you know, liken to a natural disaster.
Well, he has his opinion and he has his understanding, which he is entitled to. You know, natural disasters sometimes, like water, the movement of water is not something you can block most of the times. Even when you try to place a fence, the force of it will pull it down, to pull it away. And I agree that government in several ways needs to do more. And that's why when the reference of the Delta coasts, the Orashi, the Bayelsa Delta, and other states that this flooding period usually affects. My take and recommendations to government has always been, or is still, that there is need for alternative relief home. Government needs to build alternative relief homes, since it is a situation that is beyond their control for now, because it is now like a continual decimal, continual reoccurrences. So they can't prevent the flood, the overflow of.
You're saying the government cannot prevent the flow, this overflow.
They can't,
and it's beyond our government. That's what you're saying.
When you can't do a thing, it's assumed it's beyond you. So I'm referencing because of what we can see. Because if it's something our federal government can do, I believe they would have stopped it. So I assume that they can't do it. So that's what I'm saying. Hence, they cannot. So let there be an alternative relief home for Nigerians, so that in case of this kind of incidences, instead of going to camp them in a school building, for instance, if this flood now gets to your Rashi, like he talks about, Bayelsa, most times the environment where our brothers and sisters are kept is very, very a health hazard environment. So I think that a responsible government who understand that this is part of the challenges we usually have as a people, every state government, I don't want to limit to local government, but if they can too, there should be an alternative relief home. There's a temporary accommodation, not like a refugee camp, where they can have little basic amenities, so basic amenities and social amenities in that environment, where there is alternative school, where there is alternative health facility, where there is alternative whatsoever.
To house the people of the
exactly.
state. All right,
so
thank you.
Yes, so I think when this is done, it has shown that apart from the inability to control this flooding, there is also an ability to preserve our people when this flooding comes.
Okay. Chuba, you talked about the solution earlier, which is our conversation will not be complete without actually talking about that. But then Ambassador has stated that this is something that our government cannot handle. Do you agree?
I don't. I totally disagree. You ask yourself, I think it is in Norway that a what's it called? A place that is considered a flood-prone area on a regular, there is a system of building that are built there. From here to the cornerstone, as close as it is, you can have a waterway transportation system to get there and come back. Why? Because you already understand that this place is a water-prone environment. Then I think a different kind of architectural work has to be done in those places. There, because it's something that we have to talk about, something that is lasting and sustainable. If you talk about the entire people of Borno or the entire Oreshi region, and let's say for instance, we want to build a shift alternative for a home shift alternative for them when moments like this come up. We're looking at nothing less than 5,000 to 10,000 buildings. And how, to what extent a government that we have that does not even care about housing of Nigerians without regulations, even for the ones that Nigerians are willing to pay as rentages. We see that because of fuel or whatever, you see how hiking here and there. Is it kind of government that we're talking about, a makeshift apartment for people? So for me, I think that what should be done is a clear-cut architectural work, engineering structures put in place, looked at properly, the canals should be properly cleared. And no matter whose horse is God, we look at these things that are blocking these canals, open them, because we have been told by them these are one of the major reasons, even to the Lekki metropolis. We now have to open those canals, then make sure that the deep waters are clearly dredged. When they are dredged, and we now have done this, and at the end of the day, for instance, there's an overflow, when we have something of this nature, we now say, oh, we have done this, but this is what have not been done. But for crying out loud, we have not done the needful. Just like the East-West Road is, as important as it is, some would say it is above government to fix it. We have had people that are incompetent and they are not patriotic enough, because even with the contracts, the kind of monies that are being released for these jobs, you now begin to ask yourself, when you hear clients that are far more developed with, what's it called, properties that are going to be brought down in more developed clients to construct almost the same amount of length and breadth of road network, and you see what is budgeted for it, as against what we are budgeting as Nigerians at a time where we are complaining that we are lacking resources. Yet you now realize that, for me, I want to believe that government has to be more serious and take government more seriously than politicking. As we speak today, there are states which governors and government should be functioning. But people who believe that everything is all about them and politics have made that their primary responsibility. We are talking about a country that has this kind of serious issues on ground. And we are talking about a government that is going to buy a new private jet as against the ones they in the course of campaign say they're going to sell all of them out. They don't need it. They're a waste of funds. We're talking about a government that's going to be talking about 21 billion in the renovation of a vice president's apartment. We're talking about a government that the CBN governor is going to be buying a Cadillac of about 10 billion. Is that the kind of government that somebody tells us now that they cannot fix? Whereas we have engineers. We are talking about engineers who have capacity, who have been able to make their marks outside these shores of this country, and even architects in this country that have been able to stamp their feet on the ground. But when issues of this nature come, what we just hear is you are doling out money to people and agencies that have been there, and possibly money that have been doled out to them over and over again, even in the course of a Senate and House of Representatives oversight functions. When we watch investigations, we are taken aback, we are bewildered by the kind of funds that are not accounted for. And again, because it is a government thing, it is all for me and about politicking. Outside of it, if you want to get serious, these things are not rocket science. We're talking about a Dubai that is even bringing out a structure whereby, because they lack rain, they bring out a structure that it tries to infuse salt into the atmosphere over a period of time so that rain can fall. Are these people, are they coming from another planet? We have people that can sit down in a closed door meeting, decide that this is what we want to do, and get results. But hell no, we have a government that has proven over and over again incompetent. So for me, our political leaders have to rise up to the occasion. It is not enough to make statements. It's not enough to start sending solidarities to people, because so far so good. The people of Borno, I don't think that what we are saying now matters in any way to them, other than the fact that they see their lives possibly eroding them in before their very eyes.
The sad part, aside the properties that have been lost and all of that, a sad part is that with all of these floodings that are going on in various states in Nigeria, lives are being lost. That is the very sad part for me. And then Ambassador, you look like you want to say something.
Yes,
but then you said earlier that if the government has not done it, it means that they cannot do it.
You see, you can't give what you do not have. So the issue of this flooding is more than 20 years. So for us to believe that they can, I do not know whether you force the brain or the knowledge or wisdom inside.
We have, like Chuba said, we have experts.
You see,
Nigeria is blessed with human resources.
There is no dispute about that. You see, let's look at the context. One, the Norway, the Dubai we talked about, the development that is taking place in most of those places are not in rural communities. Like the Boronu case is a community where most people, even if you build alternative home for them, they believe that that's their fatherland. They must go back there. And sometimes we struggle with this nativity, in issues of development. So I feel that even if we must have to employ or invoke the issue of best experts in architecture, in civil engineering or whatsoever, there must be an alternative first. That's why I talk about the alternative.
No, nobody is ruling that out. Not ruling that out. That is what a lot of Nigerians are recommending right now. But what he was trying to say is, if there are other things which he mentioned that the government has not done, is it to then build houses that would, accommodate a whole state? That's what Nigerians are looking at. But so we don't dwell so much on this story. We have a whole lot of other stories to discuss. Let's go to the Labour. I don't know why I keep mistaking them for Labour Party, but Labour, Joe Ajero. All right, Joe Ajero's, that's your statement. Joe Ajero's statement, when he was asked, he actually said no, and that is not the facts that we have on ground. Right. So Joe Ajero, the president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, shared details about his recent ordeal with the Department of State Services. He was detained for 16 hours at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, where his phones and international passports were confiscated. According to Ajero, those items have been returned to him, and he explained that during his detention, he was interrogated not only by the DSS, but also by operatives on the Police Intelligence Response Team, IRT. He noted that the IRT questioned him about same issues they had previously asked during a meeting on August 29, 2024. The questions focused on his relationship with the operator of Iva Valley Bookshop at the NLC Secretariat, as well as his connections with certain protesters, including Aleojo Opaolua, on an employee of the National Union of Electricity Employees. Now, Ajero was also questioned about the Labour Party, where he clarified that while the NLC is a trustee of the party, they do not run it. Ambassador, take note. He further mentioned that the Labour Party was founded during Adams Oshomole's tenure as NLC president. Lastly, Ajero stated that the security agents seem to be searching for evidence to incriminate the NLC, highlighting ongoing attempts to intimidate, embarrass, and persecute him. Now, he said it seems like they were just looking for a way to just cow us in. They're just looking for evidence anywhere. They're asking me questions they've asked me before, conversations we've had before. In fact, why did they even have to embarrass me like that at the airport? And these were the statements of Joe Ajero. Nigerians have been wanting to know what happened during that arrest. Yes, Chuba.
Very simply, I think it's an embarrassing situation, not just for Joe Ajero, but I think for the Nigerian state. But however, like I said before, we might be pretentious and we want to be politically correct about the analysis of the state of the nation, about the political class today. But this is our reality. It's a painful one. A lot of people that have been impostors claiming to be Democrats in the political space But we have seen over and again, when given opportunity, they are more of dictators than even the dictators they fought at some point in time. However, the Joe Ajaero issue is one that is hitting the front burner in this manner because everybody believes for to a large extent, it's a diversionary tactics by government.
Really?
For me, it's a diversionary tactics by government because, like you said, you heard Joe Ajaero say, as a matter of fact, these same issues that he was being, or they interrogated him about, were already, information about these matters were already on the table of the IRT of the Nigerian police. So obviously, they have asked him the same questions before, same questions he have answered, he has given them the information, and if there are investigations should be ongoing and what it ought to be. And by law, to the little level I have, to my knowledge, before you invite somebody, some person must know the subject matter upon which you are inviting him or her. For taking him in a way and manner they took him at the airport when he was going for an international appointment, obviously you should know that if his seat is empty, the people or the organizers will ask questions, and when they do, they will now say the Nigerian government had, in a Gestapo manner, apprehended him in the way and manner they did, and without keeping him incommunicado to anybody at some point in time. These were the reasons. How do we present ourselves in the Committee of State? These are serious issues. But for me, like I said earlier, it's to me a large level, it's a diversionary measure because it all happened at the heat of when this funny fuel issue just came up the way it was, and Nigerians were trying to look for a means to work out one or two. And do not forget, when Joe Ajaero, in the detailed information, he clearly stated that they equally asked him what were his connections with the end back government protests. Yes. And he clearly told them that NSC clearly came out and said they were not part of it. And today I think they are regretting that, because if they were part of it, it would have had a better momentum, because all Nigerians need is direction. At the end of the day, if you have people that are saddled with leadership, at no matter how the level, you should understand that for every office, there are hazards. And when you are an activist or a union leader to the level of an NLC, when people talk about protest in any form that has any correlation with you, you ought to see yourself as spearheading and be part of it, so that you can give a guide to it. So for me, it's another one of too many rascalities of the present administration. It's another one or too many rascalities of our previous government that they are blowing to the high heavens, because to a large extent, they have just, whatever they have done, only God knows, but they are they think they are controlling the people. But I always say that for clarity and for posterity's sake, physics always talks about elastic limit. There is a limit that all of these oppressions and funny characters can go. And when that time comes, the old elastic has a problem.
We keep hearing Nigerians make reference to this particular example. I don't know what would happen when that elasticity is no longer there. But then on Joe Ajaero now, we were told, Femi Falana said the other time that the reason he was arrested was different from the reasons that Nigerians have in mind, or it was for a different reason, that's how I put it. And that the reason he was arrested was because he was invited for interrogation and he did not go, and then he was traveling out, so they had to arrest him.
With all due respect to Femi Falana, he has served and is still serving, and we will always respect him. And like I said, sometimes it's never a proud thing, or it's never a fun thing to sit on the camera like this. But if I listen to Femi Falana very well on the channel's television, he clearly told the world that Joe Ajaero will be released, and he was not arrested for the reasons why he was not arrested for the reasons that he was previously accused of. And what's it called? You said something now that, but he never made mention. But when I saw on the print media, because when he was on a live television like I am right now, speaking from his lips, he never made mention that Joe Ajaero was invited anytime. And the NLC spokesperson came out to the world to tell the world that he was never even given an invitation by the DSS. How much more that he was not only apprehended by the DSS, but the IRT department of the Nigerian police came to equally extend their interrogation. Listen, we might be playing with a lot of very serious issues, and I pray and hope that stakeholders do not get themselves into the murky waters of the political class and embarrass the Nigerian state to the lowest state. The truth cannot be overemphasized. This is an affront on democracy. This should be condemned by all assembly, including Femi Falana himself. Even whatever office he holds in line with the government of the day or the Nigerian police, this is not an action that should be applauded. Right. So for me, if a high-profile person of this nature that is supposedly adjudged to be a people's advocate in one way or the other, I think we should have some exceptions in the way and manner we handle issues, not to always bring the country and the nation to a level of...
All right, the federal government made a comment on this particular story where they have said that nobody is above the law. And that was when it was pre-mentioned about his being invited and him not going and wanting to travel out and all of that. I'd like to get your thoughts generally on this story.
Well, I've said here repeatedly that nobody is above the law. And the Constitution of Nigeria has in no way given the Labour president immunity. So he's not among those who enjoys immunity. And that does not mean that things that are not properly done should not be done rightly. I've said here over and again that if there is an invitation, remember when this invitation issue came up, when people were threatening strike, I said it's of no point. All you can do as fellow comrades and union leaders is to accompany the NLC president to the police invitation.
Which they did.
Good. That was enough solidarity. And then if there at any point there is reason for interrogation on issues that has to border on our national security, nobody is exempted. With the fact that my senior brother and comrade is the NSA president, it doesn't exempt him from police invite or DSS invite. And the good thing is that at the end of invitation does not mean killing. It's just interaction. It's just that it has to be in a place called security environment. Yes, I don't see any big deal. For me, I always say that they invited him, go to the place, right? They ask him questions, isn't it? Upon his answers, they let him go. So for any Nigerian to feel that is an insult on whatsoever, being a Labour president does not make you the president of the country. So you don't have the immunity. And on the issue of, we don't want to dwell on the political issue of Labour Party or whatsoever, because we all know that the board of trustees of any organizations are the owners of that organization. So we don't want to dwell on that. So I love his courage. I love his forthrightness to ensure that things get better in Nigeria. Let's
go back to your statement over him being invited for interrogation and then him attending and all that. I remember when we had that conversation, it was the first time he was invited. Yeah. And he never turned down the invitation, neither did he say he wasn't going to attend the invitation, right? And then we had reports later on that he went with his lawyer, with other members of the NLC, which they were invited him, like you suggested, yes. Right? So now the NLC, just like Chuba has mentioned, they're saying that he wasn't invited for any interrogation. Well, he was picked up at the airport, according to them.
Yes, you see, we are not there. And I also know that our senior brother, the elder statesman, Mr. Femi Falana of this SAN, is someone who has always stood, for the Nigerian advocacy for a better governance. And the last time we discussed here, there was a forum where he spoke, the NSA president spoke, the former vice president spoke, and thereabout. And I said, on this issue, then we must get a result, if all of these folks are now together. So I think the issue of invitation, most times people liken it to be, it must be in a written form. I have traveled abroad before, and while at the exit of the airport, the security operative, they stopped me and invited me to a private room and questioned me. While I was answering, they were checking the system. I don't know whether you get it. Is there any invitation for me that when I come to that country at the airport, I should report myself? The answer is absolutely
no. So you're saying that there was no need for an invitation before he was arrested?
The invitation is in different forms. So I'm only saying that, like our brother, the senior advocate, has explained, that the reason why he was invited was on a different reason.
And then the federal government said that he was invited and then didn't attend, and then he was traveling and being apprehended at the airport.
So the issue is maybe there was communication error. It's possible that the DSS may have sent out the invite.
But this is not the first time that they're sending out an invite. How come we heard the first one and didn't hear the second one?
I'm only just saying. I'm not holding brief for anyone.
It's looking like it.
If the federal government is alleging that there was an invite for our brother Ajeru and he failed to honor the invite and now he's traveling out of the country, that's why I'm saying that possibly there was a communication error. Maybe the letter was sent and did not get to him.
The UK TUC have accused the federal government of, going against the human rights. They've accused them of human rights abuse. In your analysis, do you see this as a case of human rights abuse?
Which part of the human rights abuse? When we talk about human rights, we have several. The fact that he was invited, if he's on that ground, and then also was released, I don't think his human rights was abused, because this is just a security issue, and then you were invited, you were not manhandled, just can you share this information that surrounds you?
Well, threats had to be put out by various parastatals saying that they were going to shut down the economy if he's not released by midnight.
No, you see, the issue of...
Before we heard of his release by midnight.
You see, yes, the threats or no threats, it's not the first person that Nigerian government have detained and is still in detention, despite every threat. So I do not think that the security operative released him because of the threat. I've always said that if the invitation is made and then he honors, after explanation and nothing incriminating around him, he should be lawfully released. I've advocated that. And I still maintain my ground that upon the invitation, I'm sure, like he is clearly alleging right now, that it looks as if they are just looking for evidences surrounding those allegations and suspicion. Because as we speak today, they don't have one. And I want to commend him for not being a victim of those allegations. So it means that he's an upright leader, and he should remain that upright.
Chuba.
Yeah, you see, I want to believe that we're a country that is so funny in our mode of operations, and it is imperative that we keep speaking up on opportunities like this, and by the grace of God, the government or the managers of our government will be able to hear and do things differently. I want to believe that these are packs of lies, because if situation of this magnitude at a precarious time as such in the history of Nigeria, we are buying fuel at 1,000, 350, 400, and NLC, you are already hearing that they say the mother of all protests will come up on October 1st. People are already finding one or two noises of that nature. And in the midst of all of this, the NLC president is apprehended in the manner he was apprehended at the airport. A sincere government who wants to do things rightly will just come out with a publication of the letter. We are seeing these issues happen when government are sincere. When government feel that they are on the right, this is the letter that was sent to him, XYZ date, and this was the time, this was who received it, this was what transpired, this was what transpired. But up until now, we are still talking about yes say and no yes say. The man that was apprehended has come out to make a public statement and told the world that what I was apprehended for are connected to everything that I've asked me before, which I've made clarifications to that effect. And with all due respect, I have every reason to believe that they're only looking for things to hold me down. Now, I'm not holding brief for anybody, but be that as it may, that for instance, there's any similitude of what the government is even claiming. Because today we have a government that is so reckless in statements, to the extent of I make bold to say that accusing him of treasonable felony, even to those people that caused the insurrection in the capital, they are not even charged for treasonable felony. Do you know why? Because it is a crime against the nation that cannot be excused. It's a death penalty crime. And upon that strength, everybody wants to use terminologies rightly in where people think rightly. If for instance we concede that without conceding, but we accept that what they are saying is it has any semblance of reality, one of the most reputable security organizations in the world called the Interpol has given the Nigerian government a list of supposed people who are sponsoring terrorism in this country. terrorism, people that are sponsoring terrorism in the country, some of them using Nigerian government funds to sponsor terrorism. A list was given to the Nigerian government. At a point in this country, the Assistant Security Services brought out a list of companies that have been siphoning this country of our common patrimony. What has government done with credible investigation, a private organization that have brought out information of this nature? What did the government come out to say? We are not going to shame terrorist financiers publicly. That is the stand and the statement of the Nigerian government as we speak today. Then how do you think that the average Nigerian, in sincerity of conscience, would react to a man who is supposedly, whether accepted or not? I have been here to lampoon Ajeru over and again, and enough for us, because Ajeru had some of the Ajeru led the NSC and TUC. They had an opportunity where this government removed the subsidy and the price of petrol products skyrocketed to the high levels. They had an opportunity at that point in time to write their name in gold, stand their ground, shut down everywhere, let the government begin to think with their brains, because you cannot employ people in the NNPC and keep paying them over and again, and they are running the country aground. In the midst of all of this, an arrest of this nature happens, and they think that it is not worthwhile for the Nigerian government to come and clean to explain to the Nigerian people what is happening and what is not happening. That Mr. Donald Trump was shot, was assassination attempt was made on him. The CIA director was asked to resign immediately at the floor of the house at the interrogation center at the Congress, because that is gross level of incompetence. In Nigeria, everything goes. So if this matter is not something of seriousness, if it is not the governor, the president, the deputy governors who have immunity, therefore anybody can just be acted and treated anyhow, and we are going into what we consider, let us not use the phrase, but a republic that is not in line with modern realities. And we must call
Thank God you didn't use the phrase.
We must call it spade.
Thank God you didn't use the phrase. But Chuba, since you mentioned subsidy, let's talk about subsidy. We have reports that President Bola Tinubu on Tuesday said the removal of subsidy on petrol is targeted at freeing up budgetary resources for critical investment. Tinubu spoke during the 17th Annual Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria Banking and Finance Conference in Abuja. Now, Vice President Kashim Shettima, who represented him at the conference, said his administration has taken steps to reform Nigeria's macroeconomic environment. Though painful in the short term, the removal of fuel subsidy is designed to free up budgetary resources for critical investments in infrastructure and social services, a move that is aimed at curbing inflation and fostering a more market-oriented exchange rate system. Also speaking at the event, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, assured that government would alleviate transportation costs by enhancing supply with 25 million liters starting in September through the Dangote refinery. Okay, we'll come back to that particular part of the story. Just leave it at that part of the story. But let's look at the statement first off about the fuel subsidy and the removal, and it just being, even though it might be temporarily painful, at the long run it will yield good results. Is it a school of thought that you stand on or agree to?
Well, I do not understand the end of the result of the removal of fuel subsidy, because I'm not in government. But what the Vice President is saying and what
we've been told,
the coordinating Minister of Economy, is that it's for the best interest of our infrastructure and our social best life. Which I think they may be right, because they are the drivers of these policies. But speaking from the angle of Nigerians, which is those people who are not speaking for government, I like to say that the effect is very harsh, like Mr. Vice President has acknowledged. And we have always said that though the wonderful policies for cushioning the effect of this fuel subsidy removal is not really affecting the general public of Nigerians, and the intentions and most of the programs that government claim they have rolled out is not actually visible, And had it been the visibility is there, that we would have commended those initiatives that the federal government, the president has, approved and funded as if it were. So, but hence we are not seeing those results. It looks as if the removal of fuel subsidy is a curse rather than a blessing. And I've also said here that in a way of still trusting that promises in view of removal of fuel subsidy to ensure that Nigerians get a better future and a better life, even though some are feeling that the fuel subsidy was not actually removed by the recent occurrences. But let us agree with the federal government that it has been removed, that the state government, who also have very big chunk of our resources, our local government chairmen, ought to have also, put up measures to alleviate this effect of fuel subsidy. The fact that we all keep on pushing the blame to the federal government, for me, is not the correct one, because federal government will do theirs, the state government will do theirs, the local government will do theirs, because these are the tiers of government that receives funds, allocations on behalf of the people's welfare and security every month. So for anybody to let me feel that it's about Mr. President, I always beg to disagree, because I feel that if Nigerian states are doing well, just like the United States of America, the states are doing well because the governors of those states are trying to do well in those states, even though not all the states are doing well in the United States. But at least you can understand that each of the states are trying their best. So I want to believe that for us to begin to see more positive effect in the removal of the fuel subsidy, if it's actually done, I want to believe the government, because they are the managers of our funds and our resources, that the state governors should have recommendations here on how Nigerians can survive, both in the northern and in the southern Nigeria, in this period under review. The hardship is on the high side. It is not time we are going to clap hand for any governor for building a very big road. Never. If the state's indigenes, the local indigenes cannot feed, it's not time we're going to clap for anybody because of the big hospital you are building. It's not time we clap for anybody because of one major infrastructure.
So what should we applaud them for?
The best applause we are going to give is that the welfare of the people, in terms of how to survive, in terms of feeding themselves
during this period,
going back to school. You get it?
All right.
This is the basic. At least they can have good access to health care. They can have good access to education.
Okay.
They can feed. I think these are the basic things we need now.
Okay, thank you,
Ambassador. So the stomach infrastructure must be given a very key
before the road
interest.
infrastructure.
Yeah, because we must be alive.
Let's go back to that part where reports said that, also speaking at the event, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, that's what they're doing, assured that the government would alleviate transportation costs by enhancing supply with 25 million liters starting this September through the Dangote refinery. There have been fuel scarcity. Is this something that you would applaud, like Ambassador said?
Nobody can applaud fuel scarcity in all its realities.
The recommendation now, 25 million liters by this September.
You ask yourself very simply and very clearly, like I said earlier, if it was a private run company that people are running this way, they are running Nigeria and the NNPCL, are you sure the owner of the companies will still keep these managers there? That's it's a sincere question that I don't want to know the side of the divide you feel you want to find yourself. It's a sincere question you should answer. Before the approval of the license of the Dangote refinery, what were the documents on ground? What were the agreements and arrangements to ensure that this Dangote refinery, the Nigerian government bought over 20% shares.
Yeah, it's
from
less than that.
Okay, less than 20% shares from this same Dangote refinery. Ask yourself, what was the driving force, and what were they looking at when they were doing this, from an expert viewpoint, even from a novice viewpoint. Now, whatever reasons it was, Is it the time we're supposed to be coming to discuss this issue? Just take it from 9 years different, from 2015 up until now. We have had a skyrocketing of more than, what's it called? It's more than 100%, it's more than 500% increment, or if not a 700% increment of the cost of petroleum. Now, the people that are claiming today to be the drivers of this economy, who have come out to say that they are not paying subsidy, but every investigation and reports have clearly come out to say that subsidy is still being paid, and even to a large extent some embarrassingly damning reports and investigations coming to indict the government of the day directly or indirectly. Ask yourself, these were the same people that equally brought out money, because I've always been a unionist, I've always been an activist. When we stood for subsidy removal in 2012, it was because we were able to sincerely sit down and listen to some people who were saying that they were paying subsidy to people that they did not know. The subsidy process was so shrouded in secrecy and corruption that they cannot explain. And the government felt we are not mafias enough to use morale and muscles to say we are not paying anymore. Upon this trend, we are removing subsidy, and on January 1, subsidy was removed in 2012. We saw people that came out on the street for 20 whole days, ensuring that they stood there to ensure that subsidy was paid. And for this period that subsidy was completely removed, the Nigerian state can come out, anybody can come out to challenge my stance. I have never been a fan of any administration. I have never been a part of any party. The obvious remains that the government of the day was able to show the Nigerian people where and how much was saved at that point in time, and where it was kept, and what it was supposed to be used for. It was still on this subsidy not being paid that the mother of the coordinating minister and the finance minister at that time was kidnapped. Then we must look at the root cause of our problems. Who are the major problems of this country? Today you say you have removed subsidy, and you are telling us that Dangote wants to give us 25 million liters. At what cost? With what minimum wage markup? With what level of economic boost is the government
sorry
of the
to
day?
cut you there, Chuba. You said at what cost. Now let's look at the part where the petroleum marketers have generally acknowledged the existence of the supply gap. Can we continue with that across the country? And they also blame it on the failure of Dangote refinery and the NNPCL to reach an agreement on off-taker price for the product. Now, you know, we had this argument earlier. I was in an argument of trying to understand when they said that Dangote said he only would just make it available, it's not in his place to fix the price. And then the NNPC said all of those things that I think we had this conversation here. But now with what the marketers have said, it is clear that the Dangote and the NNPC has a role to play in the off-taker price. That's from the onset, like from the price, which is what the marketers are saying they are waiting for, that agreement to be met. So do you understand that's part of the story now?
Yes, it's been clear all the time. You know, what is the big issue? The big issue is how much are we going to buy from the Dangote refinery? That's the question that the NNPC have been trying to raise.
The NNPC?
NNPCL now.
They're trying to raise that question?
No, then. And they were like, if Dangote refinery will sell almost like what, or higher than what they buy
internationally,
that they may not buy. You are aware of that story. And it means that, like my brother Chuba was trying to raise, what were the agreement, what were the terms and all that. The way inflation is going on globally, especially in Nigeria, sometimes when you have an agreement right now, this month, certainly you may need to review the agreement the next month. You know, so I want to believe that the agreement in terms of setting up the refinery is different from transaction. And I think the area of being a shareholder is in the way of also generating revenue for the country. But again, mine will always been on the pricing that the common man will get it at the fullest. It is obvious that the independent marketers are waiting for NNPC to still buy and sell to them. Because like I opined the last time that if Dangote is going to sell the products in a price that is threatening to NNPC, how possible will the independent marketers buy? Because over the period of years, the independent marketers has been buying from the subsidized.
Yeah, but now the independent marketers actually, contrary to what you said, are not actually waiting for the NNPC for them to buy from Dangote. They are aware that the NNPC has said it is open for everybody. So if you want to buy from Dangote, feel free to buy from Dangote. But then, as much as we'd like to continue this Dangote story, there's no time to continue that story. Let's go on a short break. In just a few seconds, we'll be back to continue our other stories. Please stay with us. Very good to know that you're still with us. Thank you so much for staying with us. Let's move on to our next story now. Federal government has set up a five-member committee to address multiple taxation and harassment of truck owners. This decision followed a meeting between the Minister of Transportation, Senator Said Al-Kali, and the representatives from the Association of Maritime Truck Owners and the Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners, NATO. Now, the unions had raised concerns about truck destruction, driver harassment, illegal tariffs, threatening a nationwide strike. The committee, led by key officials, is tasked with providing recommendations within 2 weeks to resolve the issue of multiple taxation on truck owners. In fact, the issue of multiple taxation is in a whole lot of parastatals. But let's look at truck owners now, and this committee that has been set up to handle this matter. Chuba.
Like I was saying, for me, every day I will come up with discussions on from the government. It's always like a joke. With all the institutions that we have set up another 5-member committee to investigate or to look at this issue of multiple taxation, because the system one way or the other is flawed, or people are not doing what they ought to do. This is another, for me, if they do not come out with something tangible, like I said, permit me to say, if they do not come out with something tangible as a resolution that will be far-reaching and long-lasting, it's another means of just settling political allies, to have some things to cheer home with. And so what are we talking about? A country that has IPMAN has almost more than 5 to 10 agencies, and yet directives cannot be given clearly and straightforwardly that will be followed. Then is it the 5-man committee that would now be, provide a better think tank than agencies of government that people have been paid salaries over the years and time? So for me, it will, for the truck owners, I think it's almost something to cheer about. At least they have somebody to hold on the jugular to say, this is what you were saddled with. What have you come up with? Let's look at what happens in the coming days, because as for me, it's another one of those many committees hopeful, right? That government just said.
All right, Ambassador, quickly on that one.
Well, I think since it has to do with conflict management, I think the essence of the committee is for the aggrieved party, the interested parties in those things to meet, and then maybe government set up, add 1 or 2 for them to come up with recommendations that will best suit the situation. But again, I will always say that it's quite sympathetic most times when you have government appointments. The intention most times is revenue generation. So that's why I sympathize with most who are running these our agencies, because they give you mandates, they give you targets. So the only way for you to meet up that target is to muzzle the people.
Sadly.
You know, so I think it's just an appeal that the federal government, the state government should not overpressure political appointees in the disguise of revenue generation. So most of them, it's not as if they want to be oppressive or come up with things that will be hurtful to these transporters or whatever. But if you do not meet up the targets, sometimes you will be shown the way out. So I want to think that those of our leaders should try and be sympathetic, because most of them are just responding to the pressures.
But even them on their own, are they being sympathetic? You have said the people above them should be sympathetic, and you've not told them to be sympathetic with the truck owners.
No. You see, it's the pressure from
okay, should we also talk about the pressure that their own leaders are facing?
No, that's what we are saying now. For instance, if as a president or as a governor or as a local government chairman, I set up a task force on a particular unit, sometimes they give them mandate targets from your agency, from your own unit. This is the amount every month you must meet. Does
it mean that there's no revenue generation? There's no way that they can generate revenue aside strangling the drivers, literally.
No, 40 templates are already on ground.
Yes, that's what I'm telling you. So if you do not meet up, if you are not ready, they excuse you out. So it is a mandate from the top to the bottom. So that's why I'm appealing to the leaders, because it's the pressure. If you are doing what I do not want as a leader, right, I will caution you or I will excuse you out. But if I'm doing what you want me to do, even when they complain, I'll say, please don't worry, we'll find a way out of it, because I know I'm the reason why you are doing what you're doing. So that's why I'm appealing to leaders to reduce pressure on political appointee in the name of trying to raise revenue.
All right, let's look at insecurity, one of the big issues happening in Nigeria currently, and something we must talk about. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, vows to disrupt terrorist financing networks by monitoring banking transactions and cutting off funds to bandits. EFCC Chairman Ola Olukoyede made this commitment through his representative, Commander Wilson, Director of Public Affairs Directorate, at the 2024 Annual Civil Military Conference organized by Civil Military Corporation at the National Defense College, Abuja. The move aims to curb rising insecurity and banditry in Nigeria, which has been linked to corruption and illicit financial flows. To achieve this goal, Olukoyede said that the EFCC will work closely with the armed forces. And he explained that by blocking illicit funds, the Commission hopes to reduce the financial incentives for these criminal activities. We will continue to monitor the flow of funds, especially in the banking sector, to ensure that illicit money doesn't get into the hands of bandits, kidnappers, and terrorists, he added. Earlier, Chuba, you mentioned terrorists not being mentioned by the government and nothing being done. This is EFCC telling us what they're going to do to put an end to financing of banditry. What are your thoughts on this story? Like, is this finally a step? It's
not a step for me. It's another newspaper headlines, and we are reviewing it now as a country. Until something is done differently, we will just keep being on the jugular to keep criticizing them constructively.
This is not a different
now
action.
What makes it different? Now I want to ask you, see, Nigerians were subjected to the process of NIM. Nigerians were subjected to the process of BVN. Nigerians were subjected to the process of so many registration issues on the grounds of the singular grounds that they needed to have a database where terrorism and its financing can be curbed. These same Nigerians have been given an information that people who are terrorizing you, to a large extent, Interpol can come out to say, we have named them, we know them, and these are their names. For crying out loud, one would have expected that this is what is considered or supposedly considered internationally as treasonable felony, and government should have swept into them quickly and made sure that at least they are arraigned and brought to book. But up until today, nothing of sort had happened. In the light of this, we have all these processes. Come on, let us call a spade a spade. When you make a funny call, a young man in the Buhari administration stayed in the cocoon of his house, far away Borno State, and made a tweet, and in less than 6 hours he was apprehended by government people because he made a sarcastic statement against the first lady. These are the same people, security agencies who went outside of this nation, audition of this country, went to far away Kenya, got somebody in a Gestapo manner, brought the person into this country, and the person is still in incarceration. Up until today, is it the same people that are telling us that so much humongous amount of money to the tune of 100 million, 500 million are being transferred electronically or even by withdrawn by cash with all the policies we see in our banking sector to terrorists and bandits, and you tell me there is a process? Listen, I make both to say that the organization should be more serious with their business. The corruption, we have always said, we have been in this country. We saw that even terrorists had affiliations with people in the Senate, to the extent that these people, they are not eating. These are facts that are already all in public space. They were seen even in government houses. At the end of the day, if we do not address these issues holistically, we will keep on coming to make statements of these natures. These
challenges that you have mentioned, the problems that you have mentioned, wouldn't that be the reason this was mentioned?
That EFCC wants to...
Yes. Don't you think the EFCC saw all of these challenges and problems and they decided to come up with
by default, my first degree is in information management technology. By default. And I want to tell you without missing what, if this is when EFCC is talking about looking at the transactional processes of banking, there is a failed system for me.
All right, Ambassador.
Well, they said they will continue. If I will understand the statement very well, that means that they have been on it. And Nigeria is a continuing nation. So for EFCC to say they will continue ensuring that they fight illicit transaction with criminals, and terrorists, I think is not a statement out of place. All I can say is to encourage them to continue.
How effective has this been since you said they've been doing it?
When I said is to encourage them, the encouragement means is for them to do more so that we can see more results. Because if we see more results, I think the angle where my brother is coming from, he will have reasons to say they are trying, let them do more. So Nigerians want to see that the processes of curbing, terrorism and criminality in Nigeria is being given a very, important attention. EFCC will not say they are not having, the report of financial transaction. I think that's why in bank at a particular time they close transaction because they have to report back to CBN every day. And then the anti-graft agencies get the report from CBN of financial transactions of the day. So I think that maybe is a system that needs more support, more help, more encouragement. Of course, we know that most times there are also political interferences when it has to do with investigation, trying to curb criminality and whatsoever. We have so much, most times, interferences. So I'd like to encourage the EFCC, our security operatives, not to be discouraged, not to be bitter. Let them continue and to give more attention, more seriousness in ensuring that the Nigerian state is delivered from terrorism, from banditry, from kidnapping, and of criminal. My take this morning to the EFCC and the security operative is that they should be encouraged and they should do more. Nigerians want to see more results. So, because I will not say they are not doing anything, because we hear them say, oh, we have arrested this, we have done this and that. They are trying,
internet for
but
stars.
they should do more. I think that's the best.
All right, let's take our last story before we get to wrap up, because time's ticking. All right, we have reports that the Deputy Director of the Socio-Economic Rights Accountability Project, Kolawole Dare, has said that it will not be intimidated by the federal government's action and will file a public interest lawsuit at the Federal High Court to compel President Bola Tinubu to comply with its request to direct the reversal of fuel pump price and probe allegations of corruption against the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. The Deputy Director stated this to correspondents on Wednesday following Department of State Service officers' invasion of SERAP's Abuja office on Monday. Recall that on Sunday, the organization, in a statement signed by the Deputy Director, issued a 48-hour ultimatum to President Bola Tinubu to instruct the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited to immediately reverse the recent hike in the pump price of premium motor spirit, commonly known as petrol. The group has also asked the President to direct the Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fabemi, and other relevant agencies to probe allegations of corruption and mismanagement within the NNPCL. And they have given them an ultimatum. If you don't do this, we're going to take legal actions against you. Chuba, I know you mentioned corruption in the NNPCL earlier.
Like I said, when you listen to the entire report, the group clearly told you that even the invasion of our office, they were not informed. And to what end is SERAP now a threat to national peace and unity? Government will always be right because they are government, and that's what they want to make the people feel. But be that as it may, let us call a spade a spade. Will anybody be running a private entity and have this bunch of people manage it for the past 10-15 years, and this has been the result it has been able to get? With the humongous amount of money that have been pumped into the revamping of the refineries in Nigeria, yet not one of them is going to come back even to run at 50% capacity, even at 20% capacity. Today is 12th September. The NNPCL told us many times the refineries will commence on different dates. Now we've been told that it's going to be commencing again. The Port Harcourt refinery is going to start up in September.
The FG has blamed the labor for that.
Now, listen, this is what we're talking about. The insincerity and the packs of lies are obviously staring us on the face. And like Ambassador clearly stated, he said when you have leaders from the top in the place of bringing in the name of revenue accrual, ask yourself, when these funds are gotten, how well are they accrued into the national? Ask yourself, what business does the managers of NNPC have to still keep being there to manage NNPC? They have little or no business by every form of managerial skills and analytical standings. because they have been there and they've run this place aground. The place is no longer functioning. Even at that, we still have people being employed to do what only God knows.
So why do you think they're still there and nothing's been done?
That is what we are saying. This is what corruption is all about. The people, it is a pally thing. Because if the NNPC is not delivering at any level, you are not, the refineries that have been built, they are not functioning. By sheer ingenuity, locals are in the forest that if you give them 1/10 of the equipment in the refinery, they will refine everything for you. Because they are refining the products without these equipment, and we are calling it illegal. And yet we have all these equipment, and yet people are frustrating the effort for it not to be possible for us not to have products. And because we want to keep on importing products at the expense of the Nigerian state, at the benefit of a microscopic view, and yet we come out to make excuses. And I love they've given the president an ultimatum. Right. We just only pray that it does not become one of those noises of the syrup, because they've always made statements, they've always gone to court, and possibly even got judgments. But at the end of the day, nothing comes out of it.
Ambassador, quickly, you said earlier, I remember when Melia Carey told the House that the Port Harcourt refinery will be functional by August, first week of August. The months are now clashing. You said this is a new administration, and this is the first time Melia Carey is saying this with this administration. So let's give him a chance. Now we're in September, Ambassador, and it's still the same case.
Well, we'll keep on giving him a chance because he's the one in charge of that position.
Nigerians have called for the sack of Melia Carey.
Is it Nigerians that employed him first of all? You see, we are running a system where some people have claimed ownership of this country, and then what Nigerians are saying, does it matter? You know, most times when you have when say Nigerians say, Serap say, who employed, who appointed those people? So you have to look at the way Nigerian society is.
You're saying the voice of the people have been silenced.
The voice of the people has been sold. The voice of the people has been transmitted. So Nigerians are handicapped. You know, Nigerians are beggars now. They are orphans.
We're not beggars.
So,
we're not orphans. We're handicapped.
No. It's a sarcastic statement anyway. It's a innuendo. So for me, I feel that first of all, because of the kind of leaders, some of our leaders are not very honest, and they don't mean well for Nigerians. Most times when these leaders are brought into offices at different levels, those who run the agencies of government, not just NNPC, they try to let them know, Oga, His Excellency, the former governor, this was his share, or this was what we used to do with him. Senator, this is how this and that and that and that. For Senate, National Assembly, this is how we used to service them all. But if you say we should not, then no problem too. Are you getting it? So once they become beneficiaries of this process of corruption that is oppressive to Nigerians, you discover that no matter what you say concerning that man, if that man is servicing those who are supposed to say, go, your opinion will not make any sense. Right, so the bad political system that we have is what is making us not to grow.
Thank you.
So that's why no matter how you call the sack of the NNPC, because you never brought him there. He is there for a purpose, to serve those who feels that they own Nigeria. So I believe one day maybe Nigeria will be for everyone. All
right, Chuba, before we go, I would like you to add to that in just maybe a few seconds.
Yeah, I think Ambassador just capped it well. The truth remains that the Nigerian people have to be facing their realities, and that is why it is no brainer for anybody to applaud our political class at this point in time. Right. We ought to criticize them till they have a change of mind and attitude. Outside of that, we consider them mostly a failure.
Chuba Opuzo, we appreciate your time on the show, the sacrifice you paid to get here. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
With the scarcity of fuel and everything going on the road, Ambassador, you made it too. Thank you so much.
Serap NSC should understand that the President of Nigeria is the Commander-in-Chief of all armed forces. So if you challenge him and you see DSS, don't be surprised.
Right.
He's in charge. He's our boss.
Ambassador, thank you so much for your thoughts. This is where we wrap it up. We must appreciate you for being part of this conversation. We'll do this again tomorrow, same time, same station, Atlantic Television Network. Remember that we are open for sponsorship and partnership. Stay connected with us on all of our socials, on Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, on Instagram and TikTok at Atlantic TV Network 1, and on X at Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website at www.atlanticnetwork.tv. Peace and unity are always the pathways to progress. Thank you once again for watching. I am Enidoye Jackson. Coming up next is Open Conversation. Please stay with us.